You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday, the 8th of August. Man arrested in connection with girl stabbing. Large bounty offered on killers of father of four. Team GB getting it on for England, my U-turn. Greece battling its immigration problems successfully. Yoko Ono and the Bundestag support Pussy Riot. Damage to Philippines worse than thought due to typhoon. 12-year-old boy boiled to death in South Africa. Thought for the day, multicultural or just a hodgepodge? UK News. Mohammed Salim Jr. Oakes, 28, has been arrested in connection with the murder of a fellow taxi passenger in Birmingham. The girl, who was in her early 20s and unnamed, and her attacker were believed to have been in some sort of relationship, West Midlands police said. She had been repeatedly knifed by her attacker and the taxi driver called the emergency services, but she later died. One resident, who does not wish to be named, said a girl came running up the hill shouting, "They've got him, he was in my mum's next door neighbour's garden." Police have set a bounty of £20,000 on the capture of men responsible for killing a father of four in last year's race riots. The killing occurred after Trevor Ellis, 26, and his friends became embroiled in a disagreement with a group of around 9 people involved in the disorder. Mr Ellis was shot in the head following a car chase as looters ran riot through the streets of Croydon, South London, in August last year. A World at 8 writer commented, "This is an awful crime, but it does beg the question that if Ellis had not been black, would the police be offering this large amount of money for his killers? I cannot remember when a bounty was last offered or on what crime." Well, I said I would not do the Olympics, but here goes again. Team GB have really excelled themselves, and congratulations to them all. We have 22 gold, 13 silver and 13 bronze. We are third behind China and the US, but when one thinks of their vast countries, resources and funding, that is no real surprise. So I have broken my own word, but I feel that although I personally have no time for these particular games, congratulations are due from all of us nationalists. As an aside, there are many more asylum seekers running from the games now, so we were not wrong there. Euronews. The crackdown on illegal immigrants taking jobs from Greeks reported on the World Date this week has seen massive success in Athens. The government deployed 4,500 police officers to go after illegal immigrants from the Third World. A total of 6,000 illegals were captured around Athens alone and are waiting deportation. The economic condition of the country is not improving, and Greece has also had its long-term rating dropped by S&P to negative from stable, citing concerns about the implementation of budget reforms and the worsening economic conditions. Over 100,000 illegals are said to enter Greece every year, and the Greeks have simply had enough, but are pleased with the halting of the Marxist EU agenda to destroy their identity. A police van transporting a Pakistani man charged with the attempted murder of a 15-year-old Greek girl has been attacked by nationalist extremists. A gang led by members of the Golden Dawn Party tried to break through police ranks and lynch the 21-year-old man. The high immigration has resulted in the ordinary Greek people backing the nationalist parties who are on their side. It has been reported that nearly every fifth member, 121 deputies, of the German parliament, the Bundestag, has signed a petition in support of 3 members of the Russian punk band Pussy Riot. They are referring to the Marxist multicultural EU Bible of the 10th article of European Convention on Human Rights that guarantees the freedom of speech and art. The deceased Beatle, John Lennon's Japanese wife Yoko Ono, has joined the list of the band's supporters, appealing in her microblog to the Russian president to free the 3 young women that are being tried for performing unsanctioned inside Russia's central cathedral of Jesus Christ the Saviour. A World at 8 reporter commented, "I am sick of this case. You should not perform music of this description in a church. Churches are for worship, not freedom of speech. Perform in theatres, on TV, in person on stage, but not in churches. If the Bundestag want freedom of speech, let them put Pussy Riot on in the nearest mosque. See how that relates to the Human Rights Act. I guarantee it will be a short, sharp show with an unhappy ending for some." World News. The monsoon in the Philippines is thought to be much worse than reported this week. Aid for over 850,000 people is underway. Officials in Manila say that the recent monsoon rains have killed many and made hundreds of thousands homeless. It is suggested that even the capital is now 50% flooded. The main issue is the diseases such as malaria and typhus that follow tropical rainstorms. Reports from China say that around 2 million of its citizens on its eastern shores have been evacuated as monsoons reach that region. Afghan security officials arrested a suspect terror operative in Kabul and then let him go free to commit a bombing. The bombing took place when the Muslim extremist boarded a bus packed with civilians. He then detonated the bomb, killing him and 8 other innocent people on board. The minibus was taking people to work at the time. A 12-year-old boy was drowned in boiling water after seeing parents killed by 3 men who broke into his home south of Johannesburg. Amaro Jose Viana, who was a South African of Portuguese descent, was gagged then drowned because he would have been able to identify his parents' killers, according to court reports. He had been forced to watch as his father, Tony Viana, 53, was tied up and assaulted with a panga hunting knife and a golf club before his mother, Geraldine, was raped and then shot with his father's gun. His father was also then shot and the family dog's stomach was cut open. The family's garden, Patrick Radibi, 24, their domestic son, Saifo Mabili, 21, and Safiwi Motung, 20, were led back to the cells laughing after Radibi and Mabili pleaded guilty to 3 charges of murder and 1 of rape, and Motung pleaded guilty to house robbery charges. Although crime rates are apparently dropping in South Africa, the sheer unnecessary brutality of the Walkerville case has sent shockwaves through the country. The case is being heard at the regional court in Vereeniging, which is 40 miles south of Joburg. The men will be sentenced on September the 6th. A World at 8 writer comments, "A truly awful case. Those men deserve the death penalty, wiping out an entire family. What a way to celebrate that terrorist Mandela's birthday, because that is exactly what he was. It proves that yesterday's terrorists may be today's elder statesmen and heroes, but they will always be terrorists." Thought for the day. Are we multicultural in the UK or just a hodgepodge? Well, of course, I believe we are now just a non-integrated melting pot of various clingers-on and parasites from around practically the rest of the world and do not resemble the much trumpeted and desired status of cosmopolitan or multicultural. In fact, you can leave out the cultural bit anyway. Greece is apparently sick to death of it, and despite them being very small and even poorer than us, they have at least had the balls to tackle it head on, as one might say. Not so us, oh no. Sit on us, we are British should be the marching song of the left and liberal establishment of today. Now, I've given up on Spot the White Man in London, but today in my minute and out-of-the-way hamlet in Hampshire, I spotted what is now not unfortunately a rare sight. It was a lady, black as the ace of spades, with 2 children, also very black, of around 10 or 12, certainly at education somewhere locally. They were not speaking English, and she made her way from her car to the machine in the wall and proceeded to draw money and then drove away. I thought to myself in a typically uncharitable way, what the hell? She's obviously fairly new to England. She has a car and a bank account. If I landed on the shores of Uganda or wherever, I, being white, would be given nothing. I very much doubt she was married to a High Court judge or a doctor, and there she is driving a car I couldn't afford after having worked most of my life in the UK. So OK, I was grumpy from Bordon, but I think we are all entitled to be grumpy over the state of our country from time to time. And lest I be called racist, a couple of days ago there was a young white couple with 2 babies, speaking Polish, doing their shopping, and I thought, why is it that we in this country are hosting the peasants of the world? Don't we realise that these people breed, take jobs, use our education and health facilities like they're going out of fashion, and do not go home? Except in the case of many Asians who have 2nd or 3rd homes in the countries they fled from and apparently cannot go back to. We really have enough of our own poor and elderly to cater to and a bankrupt country to save to actually care about all our enriching passengers. Ignoring the Muslims, which I never do for long, our intake of all colours of the spectrum into a small island must be quite revolutionary despite all the Marxist crap that is spouted. London was not formed by immigrants. London and England in general were formed by the English, the Welsh, the Irish and the Scots, and despite various religious and cultural differences, they are in my book white. So were the Romans and the Normans and the Vikings. White. Despite various books, plays and TV shows, there were very few black people around in Islington in the days of yore. The odd footman or slave, and that was it. St. George was not black. Boudicca was not black. Shakespeare was not black. We were not in a black country, we were certainly not in an Arab country either. The English have always been up to the last 40 years racist and proud of it. Let's face it, if we wanted to sample black flesh or see our coloured friends, we could always travel further than Slough or Notting Hill to do it. That was the advantage of colonies. Now we do not have the colonies abroad, but we have them here on our land and in our cities, and yes, you've guessed it, I am not a happy bunny. In fact, I'm feeling distinctly marginalised in my own place of birth. When is this supposed colonisation of our land by tribes from EU, Africa, India, Pakistan, the Middle and Far East, and all countries in between, going to stop? I class myself as a concerned tribalist, not a wittering racist extremist that our enemies class us as. I wonder if these idiots who promote black culture, Asian culture and Arab culture in their country ever think that they are turkeys voting for Christmas. Successive governments have been too weak to actually make a decent decision on immigration, so they have paid morons to do the opposite, and indeed even put immigrant morons in power to help them. It has been reported that 2.33 million EU immigrants are living in Britain today, just slightly behind Spain and Germany. Alp Mehmet, who sounds Turkish to me, of Migration Watch UK Pressure Group, has commented that this is a reminder to the government that very large numbers of people are coming in from other European countries, and warns about the collapse of the euro bringing on a wave of immigrants to Britain. Well, Alp, old boy, I suppose you'd rather see more immigration from Turkey or the Arab countries. Don't worry, we have enough of them as well for you. Apparently in some heavily populated Asian enclaves in the UK, they resent the encroachment of the Polish immigrants because they will breed as well and employ their own the way the Asians do. In fact, play them at their own game. Fine by me, as long as they all realise they are on borrowed time. Either the country and land will give up, the services will give up, the economy will give up, or the British will give up. Be warned, the immigrants will not give up. There is to be a programme on ITV this week telling us how the Kenyan Asians have enriched our society and given us all jobs. Whilst I'm watching, I will need a horse tranquiliser or I will explode. To face facts, the North and Midlands of our fair land is awash with Asian communities, most of which are Muslim. We have already lost Leicester, Birmingham, Sheffield, Manchester and Leeds. London has been gone a long time, with entire areas under Muslim Asian and Muslim African council control. It also has a heavy West Indian presence. In fact, the passport office in Croydon is packed with immigrants controlling other immigrants. Further south, the Muslim Asians, the Nepalese, the Somalis, the Kenyans, the Filipinos and even Koreans are holding sway and becoming more evident. So even in areas that previously have been safe are in fact not anymore. Even Ireland, which I went to 20 odd years ago, was white. It is no longer. Thanks to the EU, it is full of halal slaughterhouses and immigrants. Scotland is full of immigrants from the EU and the Third World. These places have been having race riots for many years, all of which are unreported, as indeed are the true stats of exactly how many foreigners there are in the UK. The numbers released are the placebo numbers. You must remember these people come in every day of every month of every year for the last 10 years, seeing the highest figures. I received a message yesterday from one of our members and the gist of it was, why are the European countries and the UK the only countries which have been told to be multicultural? Asia, Africa, Arabia, China, Japan and Russia have not been instructed to take all and sundry from everywhere and give them benefits as soon as they creep, crawl or fall onto the sod of the UK. Why? Because, my friends, it is these countries that most of our flotsam and jetsam hail from in the first place, even Russia. Try turning on a TV in those places and you will see the faces of their people. Not a different race of people, their people. Turn on our TV, even at children's hour, and you'll see a horde of multicoloured faces looking back. Does Africa have multicoloured TV? Does Japan? Does China? No. They promote their own culture, not the rest of the world's. We should not be ashamed to be tribalist. Remember who the inventor of that awful R word was. He was a communist and a Jew. It was Trotsky in 1933 that developed the perfect European word for protecting your country and its people from stealthy invasion. That word, racist. It should never be used in a free society or even in a multicultural society. Let us finish on what a true multicultural society means to me. It means control, and by that I mean controlled immigration. It is too late for that now. The only recourse open to sane people would be a complete halt and a programme of voluntary repatriation. I now hear the left crying that the jackboots and marches of the nasties coming into play here. But it is true. If we had had controlled and monitored immigration for the last 40 years, this country would be a shining beacon of hope to the world. We hopefully would have gained the best of these countries, not the extremists and the uneducated, not the criminals and the perverts, not the spongers and the hangers-on, and not the colonisers. We should have picked and chosen like other non-immigration countries do. Because what we have, my friends, like so many other European countries, the US, Canada and Australia, is a bomb waiting to go off right in our heartlands. And it has been put there deliberately and slowly and methodically. If one dares to point out the large pink elephant in the room, you are immediately branded a racist and a moron. I say sticks and stones will hurt my bones, but words will never stop me, and it should not stop you. Think what you like, express yourself as you like. One day someone, somewhere, will take notice that we are sinking, and we must try to prevent that happening for the sake of our grandchildren and indeed our ancestors. Do not despair, there is always the fickle finger of fate. Multiculturalism sounds like bollocks to me. And finally, one of Britain's leading judges, Constance Briscoe, has attacked her former partner after he left her after 12 years for a law student 50 years his junior. The 55-year-old, who was the author of Ugly, accused leading QC Anthony Arledge, 75, of being bonkers and mad after he abandoned her for an aspiring barrister almost a third of his age. The Cambridge-educated barrister has moved out of their marital home in Clapham, South London, and he's now sharing his central London apartment and Kent country house with the 27-year-old understood to be called Heather. This presenter says if that picture of is a Briscoe, then her ex-partner has my sympathies and I wish Heather luck. It just proves how bonkers we English are. She should go in the same basket as Baroness Amos and that ugly Scotland woman. You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynn Mozart and I wish you all a very good night. The attacker were believed to have been in some sort of relationship, West Midlands police said. She had been repeatedly knifed by her attacker and the taxi driver called the emergency services, but she later died. One resident who does not wish to be named said a girl came running up the hill shouting, "They've got him, he was in my mum's next door neighbour's garden." Police have set a bounty of £20,000.
You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynn Mozart. The World at 8, the #1 in nationalist news.
Highlights of the news today, Wednesday, the 8th of August. Man arrested in connection with girl stabbing. Large bounty offered on killers of father of 4. Team GB getting it on for England, my U-turn. Greece battling its immigration problems successfully. Yoko Ono and the Bundestag support Pussy Riot. Damage to Philippines worse than thorns on the capture of men responsible for killing a father of 4 in last year's race riots. The killing occurred after Trevor Ellis, 26, and his friends became embroiled in a disagreement with a group of around 9 people involved in the disorder. Mr Ellis was shot in the head following a car chase as looters ran riot through the streets of Croydon, South London, due to typhoon. 12-year-old boy boiled to death in South Africa. Thought for the day, multicultural or just a hodgepodge? UK News. Mohammed Salim Jr. Oakes, 28, has been arrested in connection with the murder of a fellow taxi passenger in Birmingham. The girl, who was in her early 20s and unnamed, and her